Welcome back to This Is Not Human, the podcast where we like to dive into the world of AI and its impact on, well, kind of everything. I'm Sam, and today we're taking a deep dive into a research paper. This one has me excited, but also kind of terrified.
Yeah.
It's about how AI is being used to actually design completely new materials.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of like, like an AI chef that's just whipping up these crazy recipes for, I don't know, like a super strong polymer or incredibly efficient solar cells.
It's such a fascinating area of research. I mean, what we're really seeing is AI kind of stepping into a role that was, for so long reserved for human intuition and just years and years and years of painstaking experimentation. The research that we're going to be looking at today is a real-world case study. It took place at a large U.S. firm.
Okay.
And the results are, yeah, like you said, Sam, both promising and a little bit unsettling.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about this whole AI chef thing. How does it actually work?
So imagine you're giving an AI this massive cookbook, right? And it's full of recipes, and there's detailed descriptions of all the resulting dishes. That's basically what's happening here.
Okay.
The AI tool that we're looking at is called Graph Neural Network, and it's been trained on a huge data set of existing materials and their properties.
Yeah, sure.
So scientists will give the AI what is essentially a wish list of properties that they're looking for in a new material. And the AI, using its understanding of the relationships between material structures and their properties, it will actually suggest completely new compound designs to try.
So it's not just throwing a bunch of stuff together randomly.
Right.
It's actually using its knowledge of chemistry and physics to come up with plausible recipes.
Exactly. If you want to break it down a little bit further, think of the atoms in material as the ingredients.
Okay.
And the chemical bonds between them are kind of like the instructions in a recipe, right?
Oh.
The AI understands how those ingredients interact and how those interactions ultimately lead to certain properties. So it uses that knowledge to come up with new recipes, or in our case, new material designs.
Gotcha.
That have a higher probability of exhibiting the desired properties.
So the AI is basically playing the role of this superpowered material scientist, just sifting through this, almost infinite number of possibilities to find those, really special gems. But the big question is it actually working? Is it leading to these real breakthroughs?
And that's where things get really, really interesting. So these researchers, they directly measured the impact of this AI tool on scientific discovery, and they found some remarkable results. So scientists who were using this AI were able to discover 44% more new materials compared to their colleagues who were using traditional methods.
Wow, those are big numbers.
Huge numbers. And they also filed 39% more patents for their inventions.
It's interesting because I remember back in episode 0002 when we were talking about AI and automation, there was so much talk about it boosting efficiency in almost all industries.
Right.
But this seems like another level. It's not just automating tasks. It's augmenting, like you were saying, the process of scientific discovery.
It really is a paradigm shift. And what's even more fascinating is that this isn't just about the quantity.
Right.
The researchers looked very closely at the quality of materials being discovered, and they actually found that the AI-assisted discoveries were either equal or better quality than those discovered using traditional methods.
So it's not just that the AI is churning out a bunch of mediocre ideas.
Yeah.
It's actually contributing to real high quality scientific advancements.
Yeah.
And that's reassuring because I know some people, I worry about it too sometimes, that AI might sacrifice quality for speed.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't sound like that's happening here.
Yeah, not at all, no. In fact, they actually used 3 different indices to measure material quality. And they looked at properties on both an atomic level and a larger scale. And across the board, the results pretty consistently show that AI wasn't sacrificing quality.
So we're not just talking about faster science. We're talking about potentially better science.
Exactly.
It's starting to kind of sound like those self-improving AI systems we discussed way back in episode 004.
Yeah.
Constantly learning and getting better with time.
You're spot on, Sam. That is one of the really key takeaways from this research.
Okay.
The AI tool doesn't just start off with a fixed knowledge base.
Right.
It actually gets better the more it's used.
Oh, wow.
It's initially pre-trained on this massive database of existing materials. Then it's fine-tuned for very specific applications within a particular lab. And then, get this, it actually incorporates the results of the scientists' real-world experiments to, further refine its suggestions.
So it's just constantly evolving, taking in all this information and
Yeah.
getting feedback from the human scientists.
Absolutely.
It's almost like a collaborative dance or something between human and artificial intelligence.
It really is.
But that raises another question when I think a lot of our listeners might be wondering that as well. Is this AI actually coming up with new ideas? Or is it just kind of rehashing existing knowledge in, slightly different ways?
That is the big question, right? I mean, none of us want AI to just be a fancy remix machine. We want it to be pushing the boundaries of what's possible, true scientific discovery.
Exactly. So how did they figure that out? How do we know if these materials are actually groundbreaking and not just, variations on existing themes?
Well, they tackled that question in three different ways, and I gotta say, the results were pretty compelling. The first thing they did was they analyzed the chemical structures of these AI-designed materials.
Okay.
What they found was that they were significantly more distinct from existing materials compared to those that were designed without AI assistance.
So it's actually like going out and finding new stuff. It's not just rearranging like the same building blocks.
It's going into new chemical territory.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. And then the second way that they assessed novelty was by looking at the patents that were filed by these scientists.
Okay.
They specifically focus on the introduction of brand new technical terms, right? Because new terms are a pretty strong indicator of a novel invention.
Right.
And guess what? Patents from the AI-assisted scientists were way more likely to include these brand new terms.
So not only are they chemically novel, but they're also like leading to inventions that are truly pushing the boundaries of what we know.
Absolutely. And then the third way that they measured novelty was by looking at the types of product innovations that came out of it.
Yeah.
So what they found was that AI shifted the balance from just like incremental improvements on existing products to actually creating entirely new product lines.
So it's like full-on new stuff.
Yeah, it's about enabling those leaps into uncharted territory, those like radical innovations that have the potential to change the world.
This is all incredibly exciting, but I think we need to kind of shift gears a bit and talk about what all of this means for, the actual scientists themselves.
Yeah.
Seems like their jobs are undergoing a pretty radical transformation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And that's actually where we start to see some of the potential downsides to this whole AI revolution. Because while this tool is clearly accelerating discovery, it's also changing the very nature of scientific work, and those changes aren't always positive.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this, like this partnership between humans and AI
Yeah.
and how it's impacting, the experience of being a scientist.
So one of the most striking findings from this research was that AI isn't just a tool. I mean, it's becoming more like a collaborator, a partner in this whole scientific process. And as with any partnership, I mean, there are benefits, but there are also challenges. So the study kind of breaks down the materials discovery process into three different tasks: idea generation, judgment, and then experimentation. And before AI came along, scientists were spending a significant chunk of their time on this idea generation.
Right, just coming up with the ideas.
Exactly, poring over research papers, brainstorming different structures.
So now with AI kind of taking over that initial brainstorming, it seems like they have more time to focus on other aspects of the research.
Exactly.
But what are they focusing on?
Judgment. This means basically evaluating the AI's suggestions. So they're sifting through, I mean, potentially hundreds or even thousands of different materials that the AI comes up with, and they have to decide which ones are actually worth pursuing.
So it's not just like blindly following the AI.
Right.
The scientists still need to use their knowledge and their experience to really determine which of the AI's ideas are, the most promising.
And what the research found is that there's a huge variation in how well scientists can actually do this.
Oh, that's interesting.
Some were amazing at it. They could quickly identify the best candidates using their deep understanding of the field to separate the wheat from the chaff.
Right.
Others struggled.
Yeah.
They wasted time and resources chasing down leads that went nowhere because they weren't as good at evaluating the AI suggestions.
So it doesn't matter how good the AI is if you don't know how to use it.
Exactly. It's like having a super fast sports car, but you don't know how to drive.
Right.
You're not going to get very far.
So is this AI evaluation skill, is that something that can be learned, or is it just like some people have and some people don't?
That's a great question. It's actually something the researchers dove into a lot in the next part of this study.
Okay.
They looked very closely at all the factors that contributed to successful AI evaluation. And what they found is that it wasn't just intuition or some magical talent. It was mostly based on experience and domain knowledge.
So all those years of studying, experimenting, they're still paying off in the age of AI.
Absolutely. In fact, this study kind of highlights a new kind of scientific expertise,
Okay.
which is the ability to be an AI evaluator,
That's
to
interesting.
be able to really look at what the AI is doing and make smart
It's
decisions.
like a whole new branch of science is emerging. The AI augmented scientist.
Exactly.
This is fascinating stuff. But I have a feeling that there's more to this story, and it's not all, sunshine and roses, is it?
You're right, Sam. There's a darker side to this AI revolution, and that's what we need to talk about next.
Welcome back to This Is Not Human.
Hmm?
Before the break, we were talking about this fascinating research on AI and material science and how it's not just, leading to incredible breakthroughs, but also like raising these big questions about the future of scientific work.
Yeah.
And you were just starting to tell me about the darker side of this AI revolution. What exactly did you mean by that?
So the researchers didn't just look at, the impact of AI on scientific uh, productivity and innovation.
Right?
They wanted to understand how these tools were affecting the scientists themselves, like on a more personal level.
Hmm.
And what they found was actually, it was pretty surprising.
Okay, I'm all ears. What did they find?
So the study included these surveys that the scientists took both before and after they started working with this AI tool. And the surveys, they revealed that there was a significant drop in job satisfaction.
Really?
Yeah, and it was even among the scientists who were super productive with the AI.
Wait, so even the scientists who were like really good at using the AI and getting good results,
Yeah.
they were still less happy.
Yeah, that's what was so surprising.
It seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, so that's exactly what the researchers wanted to figure out.
Okay.
They dug a little bit deeper into this survey data
Hmm.
to try to figure out what was going on, what were the reasons behind this drop in job satisfaction. And what they found is that it was a pretty complex issue with several contributing factors.
Okay, well, let's try to unpack some of that.
Mhm.
Like, what were some of the main reasons that the scientists gave for feeling less satisfied?
One of the things that kept coming up was this feeling that their skills were being underutilized.
Okay.
They were spending less time, remember, on idea generation, which for a lot of scientists, I mean, that was the most engaging part of their job.
Right, most creative.
Yeah,
It's not just about the work getting easier. It's about the work becoming, I don't know, less interesting, less personally fulfilling. It makes me think about some of the stuff we've talked about, like the potential for AI to, I don't know, create the sense of meaninglessness or dread when it starts to take away from things that, give our lives purpose.
I think that's such a good point, Sam. It's not just about, like, being replaced by a robot.
Right.
It's about losing that sense of meaning. When AI starts to take over those tasks that we humans find really inherently valuable, and in this case, with these scientists, it seems like the shift away from idea generation was contributing to this feeling like
Yeah.
their creativity was being diminished.
Like they're not really needed anymore.
Yeah, like they were becoming more like technicians carrying out the AI's directives rather than the ones actually, driving the research.
So it's interesting because even though they might be objectively more productive, there's still this underlying sense of, I don't know, disempowerment, like their expertise is being sidelined.
Exactly. And to make matters even worse, there was this concern about like credit allocation.
Mm-hmm.
So, when there is this big breakthrough, who gets the credit?
Right.
The scientist who's working with the AI or the AI itself. And that ambiguity, I think, can create tension and erode the sense of ownership.
Yeah, it's like, who's the real author? It
Exactly.
reminds me of that whole debate with AI-generated art and music,
Yeah.
like who's the real creator?
Yeah, exactly.
And in science especially, credit and recognition, I mean, that's so tied to career advancement.
Oh, absolutely.
So that ambiguity can be, I mean, really unsettling.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of all of that, we can't forget, how difficult it can be to use these complex AI tools.
Right.
I mean, we've all been there. The technology doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
If I'm frustrated.
Yeah, you get frustrated. And it turns out that even highly trained scientists, I mean, they were struggling with the usability of this AI tool.
So they feel like their skills are being underutilized.
Mhm.
They feel like they're not as creative.
Yeah.
And then they have to fight with this computer program all day.
Yeah, it's like a recipe for burnout.
That's rough.
Yeah, and the study found that those scientists who really struggled to use the tool effectively, they actually experienced even higher levels of dissatisfaction.
Makes sense.
But here's where things get really interesting. So, despite all of these negative experiences that these scientists were having, their beliefs about AI were actually shifting in some really unexpected ways.
Okay, I'm really intrigued now. So You're saying that even though they were having these negative experiences, like struggling with the tool, their overall perceptions of AI were actually like becoming more positive.
Well, not necessarily more positive, but they were definitely changing.
Okay, so how are they changing?
So after using this AI tool, scientists were significantly more likely to believe that AI would fundamentally change, like the skills needed to be successful in their field.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. We've
Yeah.
already talked about like the rise of the AI evaluator, right? Like that's a crucial new skill.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that it seems like scientists are starting to embrace this need to adapt and acquire new skills.
Okay.
So the survey found this huge increase, like 71% increase in the number of scientists who are planning to reskill specifically to get better at working with AI.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
Yeah, so it seems like they're not just passively accepting these changes, they're actually like actively preparing for this future of, AI augmented science.
So they're seeing the writing on the wall.
Yeah. And I think that that proactive approach is so essential because what the study also found was that even, the most experienced scientists, they didn't really fully anticipate how AI was going to impact their work.
Yeah.
It was very different from what they imagined.
I feel like that's the case with most people. Like AI is developing so fast that it's hard to keep up.
Absolutely.
So it seems like those scientists who are willing to, kind of adapt and learn new skills, they'll be the ones who really thrive in this new landscape.
For sure. And it's interesting, right? It's like this complex interplay between hope and anxiety and excitement and disillusionment.
It's all the feelings at once. I
Exactly
mean, they're
right.
seeing this incredible potential of AI,
Right.
but they're also facing these real challenges to, their profession and even their sense of identity as scientists.
Yeah. It's a fascinating and, to be honest, a little bit unnerving time to be witnessing this kind of transformation.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, like, if the scientists who are the ones like building these tools and using them, if they're having trouble predicting the full impact,
Yeah.
what hope do the rest of us have?
That is the million-dollar question, Sam.
Yeah, it's a little bit dizzying to think about.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody has all the answers, but I think it's conversations like this that are so important. Exploring these issues, sharing insights, and just asking those tough questions so that we can kind of figure out, how to navigate this AI-powered future.
I totally agree. Speaking of tough questions, this study brought up another interesting and maybe slightly unsettling finding.
Okay, what's that?
So they found a small but still significant decrease in the scientists' overall satisfaction with like their choice of field
Oh, wow.
after working with this tool.
That is unsettling.
Yeah, so we've talked about, the drop in job satisfaction.
All right.
But this suggests that it's, I don't know, maybe it's even deeper than that. Like it's making them question their whole career path.
It is. It's like their disillusionment isn't just about their day-to-day work. It's like more existential.
Totally. And even though this study was just on material science, it makes you wonder, like, does this apply to other fields too?
For sure.
If AI is changing the nature of science and discovery in a way that makes even, the most successful people feel less satisfied, what does that mean for the future of science as a whole?
Right. What does it even mean to be a scientist anymore?
Yeah. That's a huge question that like we're all going to have to figure out, as we go.
I agree.
But it highlights this need for more research, more dialogue, and just really taking ethics into consideration as we integrate AI into these really important fields.
For sure. I think we need to move past the hype and the fear-mongering and really try to understand these complex realities of how AI is changing the world for better or for worse.
I like that. I think this paper is a good example of that, like, nuanced, in-depth analysis. It's not just, cheering for AI, but it's also pointing out like the potential downsides and consequences.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that AI is this incredibly powerful tool, but it needs to be used responsibly and thoughtfully.
Absolutely.
Uh,
This has been a very deep dive, so to speak.
It has.
Covered a lot of ground from like the mechanics of this, AI-powered material discovery
Right.
to like the bigger philosophical
It's
question.
a big question.
And it feels like we're really just like scratching the surface.
Oh, yeah. There's so much more to talk about, but I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
Definitely. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more point that you mentioned before.
Okay.
This idea that even the experts, right, are having trouble like predicting the full impact of AI.
Yeah.
Like if the scientists who are, building these tools
Yeah.
and using them every day are having trouble, what hope do the rest of us have?
That's the million-dollar question, Sam. And Honestly, I don't have the answer, but I think one of the things that we need to do is to really cultivate a sense of humility
Hmm.
when it comes to these technologies. We're still in the early stages of understanding what AI can do and how it's going to reshape the world. And we have to be open to the possibility that, the future might look really different from how we imagine it today.
That's a good point.
Hmm.
I mean, we can't just assume that technology will always lead to progress, right? We have to actually shape the way it develops and make sure it aligns with, our values and aspirations.
Exactly.
But that just leads to another question. Whose values and aspirations are we talking about?
Yeah.
And how do we make sure that the benefits of AI are actually shared by everyone?
I mean, those are the questions that, we're going to be grappling with for a long time
Yeah.
as AI becomes more and more integrated into, basically every aspect of our lives.
Right.
But I think, at least the first step is acknowledging how complex these issues are and trying to resist that temptation to oversimplify or to come up with easy answers.
Yeah, it's tempting, but I think you're right. It's more complicated than that.
Yes.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of This Is Not Human. We've covered so much ground, but, like you said, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
The beginning.
Join us next time as we continue our exploration of AI and its impact on humanity. Until then, keep those questions. Welcome back to This Is Not Human.
Yeah.
We've been spending this episode talking about some pretty groundbreaking research on AI and material science, like how it's not just changing, the way we discover new materials, but also, what it even means to be a scientist.
Right. It's changing the whole experience.
Yeah, and as we've seen, it's a pretty complicated story. We've got these amazing opportunities, but also there's some things that are a little bit unsettling.
Yeah, definitely.
On the one hand, we have AI that can, speed up discovery so much.
Yeah.
Push the boundaries of what's possible, even, work with scientists as partners.
It's incredible.
But at the same time, we see this rise in job dissatisfaction, this potential for creativity to be, I don't know, stifled.
The loss of agency.
Yeah, and even, some scientists are feeling, I don't know, almost disillusioned with the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a lot to process.
It's like we're seeing this clash of values, right?
Yeah.
This drive for progress. We want to push the limits of what's possible, and AI is this incredibly powerful tool to do that.
Right. Absolutely.
But what about, the human cost of all this progress? What happens to the scientists, the researchers, the people who have, dedicated their lives to this?
Yeah.
What happens when AI starts to take over, the most interesting parts of their work?
That's the big question, and I don't think there are any easy answers.
Yeah.
But this research, I think, gives us some good insights. One of the most important things to me is this focus on the partnership between humans and AI. So instead of seeing it as AI replacing humans, we need to figure out how to integrate AI in a way that makes things better for the humans.
Okay, yeah, you keep mentioning this human-AI partnership.
Oh.
What does that actually look like? I mean, in practice, how do scientists actually partner with AI?
Well, first, we have to remember that AI isn't just a tool.
Right, it's more than that.
Yeah, it's more like a collaborator, even though it's, obviously very different from, a human collaborator.
Right.
So just like in any other collaboration, you need good communication, respect for each other, and understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, so what does that mean for, a scientist working with AI?
Well, they need to understand how the AI works, what it can't do,
Okay.
and how to really think critically about what it's telling them.
So it's not just about technical skill.
No, it's not just about, being able to code or analyze data.
Right.
It's about all those things that make us human,
Right, curiosity, creativity.
Exactly. Curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, that ethical awareness, all of that.
So we're not just training scientists to be, better programmers.
Right. It's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's like a whole new mindset.
Exactly. A new way of thinking about science.
So AI can be a really powerful partner in discovery, but it's not going to replace us.
Right. We still need humans.
That's where education and training are so important.
Absolutely.
We need to prepare the next generation of scientists for this AI-powered future.
For sure.
Teach them how to work with these tools, how to evaluate them, and how to make sure they're using AI ethically.
That's where it starts.
But that just raises another question. If things like expertise and judgment are becoming even more important, how do we make sure those things are recognized and rewarded in science?
Yeah, good question. A lot of the traditional ways we measure success in science,
Right, publications, grants.
exactly, that might not be enough anymore.
Right, because that doesn't capture those, nuanced skills that you need to work with AI effectively.
Exactly. We need to rethink how we measure success.
This has been a really, really thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
And it seems like we're, just starting to understand what AI means for the future of science.
Oh, yeah. We're just at the beginning.
I think the big question isn't will AI replace us? It's how can we, as humans, shape the future of AI so that it works for us?
That's the question we should all be thinking about.
And I think the answer is, to really embrace the complexity of all this,
Mm-hmm.
not try to oversimplify.
Right.
We need to approach AI with a sense of wonder, but also, a little bit of skepticism.
Yeah.
We can't just blindly trust it
We need to experiment, learn, and be ready to adapt.
because AI is changing so
So
fast.
fast.
And the most important thing is the future of AI is not set in stone.
Right.
It's up to us to shape it.
Absolutely. We have the power to make sure that AI reflects our values, our hopes for the future.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of This Is Not Human. Thanks for joining us in this deep dive into the world of AI. We'll see you next time.